Welcome everybody for the second panel of the day. This one was highly requested by the planning committee when we were thinking about topics for this event because as you saw in the earlier panel, it is a lot of doom and gloom out there right now, given the economy and everything. So I believe the insights we'll share today will hopefully provide some sense of hope that we as a community and as an ecosystem will be all right if we are able to collaborate together and share our resources. The narrative for today is all about how do we utilize the excess capacity that exists out there, I believe, in all of our businesses and organizations in order to build a more resilient ecosystem for all. I'm joined by some really cool folks who are working on some really cool projects around shared infrastructure and how do we become better community members for all. So I believe it might be helpful for everybody actually to get a sense of who's in the room today. I'm assuming you're attending this because you either have capacity to share or you are looking for some potential resources that you can utilize in form of partnerships and collaboration. So let's start off with the different asset class maybe. Are there any farmers in the room, people who have access to farmland of some sort, who have excess capacity that they would be willing to potentially collaborate with others on? Anybody? Okay, take a look around the room. And then how many of you who are looking for farm and land potentially that might be needed? Anybody in the room needing for that? Okay, a few. Great, perfect. Next up on the list would be storage warehouses. Could be even like a little closet that you guys have in your space. Anybody who has excess capacity in terms of storage or warehousing? Okay, great, perfect. Anybody looking for warehouses and storage space? Okay. And then more specifically, anybody with cold storage? That's a big request in the community usually. Cold storage excess, cold storage. I feel like I'm running an auction. Anybody who are looking for cold storage of some sort? Great, okay. Another big one is commercial kitchens. I myself, with my family's restaurant, we have excess, especially during off hours, those who are looking for commissary kitchens. Anybody? Great. And then who's looking for commercial spaces? Anybody? Great, back over there. Great, Jeremy. And then let's do, how about pop-ups, retail spaces, dining rooms, myself included. We have excess for that. Anybody who have excess for? Great, excess capacity. And anybody who's looking for pop-up space, retail space of any sorts? Great, perfect. And then last but not least, co-packers and processing usually are pretty big as well. Any co-packers in the room? Anybody? Great, perfect. And anybody who's looking to expand into co-packing and production? Great, perfect. Great, so thank you so much. I mean, we of course didn't cover all the potential creative uses, definitely, and these folks here will share some really great insights into that as well. There is the matchmaking wall right by the restroom as well. Highly recommend you peruse that. So why don't we get started? We have about an hour together today. I'll be asking some questions, but hopefully there will be a good amount of time for audience questions as well. So maybe we'll start off going down the row and talking a bit about who you guys are, of course, and what project you're working on, and most importantly, how are you utilizing the concept of shared spaces and shared infrastructure in order to accomplish your goals. We'll start with Stacey right here.
Hi, I'm Stacey Crnich. I am the CEO of GoodRoots Northwest. We're a food access organization based in Pierce County in unincorporated, right outside of Buckley. And we have a market that is on a farm that is what is most commonly described as a food bank. but we refer to it as the market. And then from that central location, we run a network of refrigerated, cellular-enabled lockers that are, they can heat, cool, and freeze. We have currently 9 lockers with the capacity to serve over 100,000 visits, and we're expanding to other areas of Pierce County with capacity to serve over 250,000 annual visits. Part of why we're here today, you'll hear from Jeremy, but we are co-locating our distribution, our locker distribution, and our warehousing so that our shared physical infrastructure will be there, but also our digital infrastructure. So our consumer is able to shop online for their foods that aren't paid for, but will also have the ability to access food, surplus food in our region that they do pay for and apply their benefits. So it's a hybrid fusion of that, the digital infrastructure as well. So pass it on.
There you go. Hi. Yeah. Hi. Good morning, everyone. I am Mahogany Williams. I am the owner of the Pickled Chef. We are located in Browns Point, Tacoma. It's an incorporated part of Pierce County, and in this little kitchen that used to be a butcher shop, I turned it into a WSDA food processing center, and I process my company, the Pickled Chef. We do pickles there, but I made sure in the very beginning part of this that I would make room for other companies to be within my kitchen, because in my point of view, I pay 365 days a year for rent and 24/7. So let's get our money's worth, and so that's kind of why I built this space, and we are expanding. This is now our year 2 officially, and we're ready to expand more and opening our eyes to other food businesses that are out there, as I saw a real need for small businesses to have access, so that's why I started it.
Hi, I'm Abby Antonelis, and I'm representing 2 organizations from Vashon today, the Vashon Island Growers Association and the Friends of Mukai. And today we're going to be talking mostly about the barreling plant at Friends of Mukai, and we're turning it into sort of an agricultural hub for shared infrastructure. That includes like farm implements, storing cover crop orders, storing things that farmers need, but also creating a commercial kitchen space for growers and the community to use, and then having retail space as well there.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Vrablik, and I own Cascadia Produce. I've got about 25 years of wholesale produce experience. I started with a company that today is probably doing tens of millions of dollars worth of sales. At that company, I helped manage the Cisco Food Services account and bringing local product into the Cisco supply chain. About 8 years ago, I left that company to start Cascadia Produce, essentially to try to do the same thing on my own. Under the pandemic, we contracted with the federal government with the Farmers to Family Food Box program. We're a part of that program. We've contracted with the state of Washington under a couple of different departments, King County, also the city of Seattle for the school districts, and we've taken the abilities that I have with my network over all of this time to really focus back on supporting the nonprofits that are out there, taking care of the community, and being able to bring the assets that we have both in network and with our facility to be able to allow that to happen.
Thank you, Jeremy. We have some technical difficulties over here, but we're good. So I'm curious about, especially for folks in this room that might want to embark on a similar project or potentially utilizing the resources that you guys are also offering. How did you get started, right? Be as practical as possible, talking about maybe the permits that are required, the risk mitigation, all the beautiful administrative stuff in order to make whatever you were envisioning into a reality.
That's a big question. I think the origin story of Good Roots goes back to 2020. We're actually an organization that's been around for 15 years as the Bonnie Lake Food Bank, and the reimagining of that happened in 2020. I actually inherited a dilapidated food bank and fully opted into this about 10 days before the lockdown. So that was a really strange time to start a new job, but it was a blank slate. It was more than a blank slate. It was awful, right? And so we had $5,000, yada, yada. We move out to a farm without, that was risk. I guess the biggest answer that I can say is like being willing to move forward and take on some of the risk that it takes to be innovative. I was deeply troubled during that time about access for all community members and was not feeling like I could rest until there was 24-hour access like the rest of the community has to food. And currently I don't know if I'm resting yet, I guess I should say. However, what originally happened as sort of an idea was I kept putting it in front of people and heard no many, many, many times about how that wasn't going to be possible, that 10-year-old technology was not going to be utilized in that space well. So I think actually the real innovation is not that we're utilizing technology. The innovation is that we cared enough about people that can't afford it to apply that to that community members that are in need of food. So it started out as a pilot, and I would recommend this to anybody that's trying to get something started, that oftentimes you'll receive seed money and it is not enough on paper. It is never enough to be able to complete that project, but move forward anyway. We received $170,000 for a piece of equipment that cost $100,000 to put in. On paper, that was a $500,000 pilot to get that going. We put that right beside our market. We put it beside infrastructure that was already working very well for the community, and we placed this innovation right beside it so that we could incubate our own innovation and watch it and tend to it and learn about it and sell it. And it was a showroom model. And I treated the rest of the year, once we landed that locker, like it was a showroom model for all people to see. Whether it was a farmer, whether it was somebody that just drove by and wondered what it was, everybody got to see it, and I trickled and relentlessly spoke about it as a solution. I still do that to this day. I'm very future focused about what we're doing. I only speak about it as if it's successful. And it is, but I think that part of the confidence that I personally have to gear up to take that level of risk and say that this is going to work is really willing it to be so. So with that $170,000, we made an additional $150,000. I was able to maintain that. I had 1 year of data showing that our consumer was adopting that technology. Not only adopting it, but that our consumer is then actually shopping 50% less and selecting 50% more items. Because food is available 24 hours, it's very convenient online, and so hoarding started to subside. The Costco toilet paper theory started to disappear. That's some great data. So with that, we exposed it congressionally to Representative Schreier and Representative Strickland, and we're able to kind of build off of that. But it had to start as a successful pilot that was that we were obsessed with for a year, even though we couldn't afford it.
Sorry, I was listening.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think for us at the Pickled Chef Kitchen, we started really bootstrapping it. Honestly, I had one investor to start, and I was really grateful for them. They were friends, and that's kind of how a lot of businesses start, is thank goodness for successful friends who have some money to invest in you and loan to you. And honestly, I mean, I know that this is a bad thing to say, but we had to put some stuff on credit cards, and that's just what it was. We had to pay for our permits on credit cards. We had to pay for our Home Depot stuff to buy the wall to get certified on credit cards, and it's a risk, just like Stacey spoke of, and to not know the outcome is very scary, which is why a lot of people just don't even get past that point. And so I think it's sometimes really important to be kind of almost fearless and don't think about the consequences up front, even though they're in the back of your mind. But if you think about those, you will stop yourself and you will set up a barrier, and that will stop you from getting to the end point. And so it was really important to me just to get over that barrier and just to keep saying, yes, don't worry about the debt. Yes, just keep going. This is going to work out. Yes, just keep pushing forward. And then to get to the permit process, to be honest with you, the WSDA makes it really easy. I really have to commend them. They really do want you to succeed. They're not the same as a local health department. They have different regulations, different rules, and different set of goals that they want to achieve. And so they were very helpful for me. Anytime I had a question, I could call, I could email, and I got a lot of hands-on and heads up of what I needed to do to be prepared for the inspection process. And to be honest, my inspector was great. She was very responsive, told me what I needed to do to correct things, and told me what I needed to do long-term to be successful and to continue to renew my permits with WSDA, which we just did a few weeks ago. And so I would say mostly the struggle was to just get out of my own head and to get out of my own way of saying, well, I don't have, 6 figures to start with, so then I can't start. And I knew on paper it's going to take almost $250,000 to get this business where we need to go. And we've gotten more and more investment as we go along. And now that we're in big grocery stores like PCC, we now have data and results to show people. And so now it's getting a little bit easier to get that funding. And now it's becoming a little bit easier to go in and tell people, oh yeah, I started a pickle business. I mean, I have to be honest with you, I got laughed at so many times when I described what my business was and what my idea was. And people are like, what? What is the name of your business? And what are you doing? Because truthfully, the pickle business has been overtaken by about 10 companies, and they've been doing it for almost, some of them, a decade, or 100 years. Clausen's, I think, is around for that long, and to go in with a different style of pickle, a pickle that people could have done at their home on their own, but they're not, and to see the void and to see the need that fresh pickles need to be out there, they need to be ready to eat, and they need to be not full of chemicals or preservatives, because that's really important to me. And so that's why I started a food company, is I want food that I want to eat out there, and I want it to be diverse and delicious and different flavor profiles. I don't just want the same dill pickle. To be honest with you, I don't even really like dill pickles. I don't even eat those. They're not my favorite. The reason I come up with the pickles I came is because I worked in a restaurant, and I saw that people wanted a restaurant experience at home. I mean, people are building $200,000 home kitchens now, and so they want to be like that chefy, and so let's give them that chefy product that they can buy at the grocery store. They can have that chef experience and show off to their friends at home, and truthfully for me, just put something fresh and new out there, because pickles can be delicious, and they don't have to just be dill. I love my pickled beet eggs. I love my pickled grapes and just different things like that. So being innovative was part of it, but also just getting out of my own way and being fearless was why I'm here right now. So that's what I would recommend.
Our project's a little bit different. We're 2 kind of all volunteer boards. The Friends of Mukai have an executive director, but Vashon Island Growers Association is 4 of us volunteering our time. So for us, it's more a pretty long game. For example, Mukai just was deeded the barreling plant this year from King County. That took years and years and years to get that. For us on Vashon, we kind of have to capitalize on what's already there as best we can, because there's water rights issues there. Not everybody just gets water rights. There's a certain amount, and that's what's there. There's also land is really expensive, and so this project was kind of perfect for what is a big need in our community. We need a commercial kitchen space for growers in the community to use, and there are a few, but there's challenges with them. So I'm kind of going off topic there, but basically is a long slog for us. And it's looking for grants, making connections with other community members, and just sort of leveraging everything that we already have on the island to make this project successful. The whole project in total is $3 million, And that's many, many, many awards piled up to equal that $3 million. And then we'll be constructing this year.
I started everything because I had good support at home, and I quit my job that was well paid with benefits, and I relied on my wife's benefits to give me security. I had not a truck, I had not a cooler, I had not a building, I had tenacity, just like everybody else up here on this panel. I had a sense of defiance against the system because I was not going to take no for an answer, much like everybody up here on this panel. And I worked really hard, 24/7, just like everybody up here on this panel. And all of that hard work and all of that backing me, there was luck to it, and it put me into a place where I was able to receive that luck. That luck was mentors from the produce industry calling me up. I had one guy in particular, he would call me every Friday. He'd say, "Jeremy, what'd you do right? What'd you screw up? What are you gonna fix about what you screwed up next week?" And it was just ongoing like that. And I still live and breathe everything that I do for work, and it carried on. And I stressed out so much about buying an $800 freezer from Costco because I was doing some frozen wasabi at a Cisco at the time when I first started. Fast forwarding that, all of that work, everything there, and the unfortunate part of all of it is because of the pandemic, we were able to operate with the federal government on that, at that level, being able to call in all of those people that I know, being able to scale up quickly. We had a $5.5 million a month contract with the federal government, delivering food boxes to every single county in Washington state. We were in Ponderay, Ferry, Waukegan, Kittitas, Grant. We went everywhere with it, very purposefully, because aside from my wife, my kids, my dogs, I have two really big loves. I love talking. I am doing my best to try to keep on time here and not go off on the rails on everything. And I love puzzles, and I love solving puzzles. And that was the big driving force for me, really going out and going, here's a puzzle, here's something to fix. Whether I'm ever gonna get to the end of fixing this puzzle or not, it was, I have to throw myself into it completely. And so that's what happened with Cascadia, is that we just started branching out, and as I would talk to more people, I'd find more puzzles that I had to work on, and it just kept going on and on. And my wife, sorry, you were talking about my hands flying around, because this is what happens when I start to get excited about talking. There was just so much, I would build off of the excitement and talking to people, and I really think that was a really strong factor in everything that I was able to do, is communicating with people and hearing about what they were doing, and trying to, realize that, we are all connected, and being able to try to be that connector was instrumental in being able to get me to where I am today.
Thank you all. And maybe we'll follow that up as well, Jeremy, to your mentioning, love talking, to your mentioning of the challenges that you encountered along the way, right? And I'm curious, especially that you all have lived experiences now, and I think a lot of you touched on this during your intro. What are some of the barriers that you encountered? How did you overcome them? And also, any insights, and what would you want to tell maybe folks in the room to not do that when you're kind of getting these things started?
Squash that voice in your head that says you can't do it, because you can do it. But you got to rely on other people. I guess that's the first thing, really, is recognizing that you can do it. Barriers that we faced for sure have been funding is always a barrier, and really being able to identify what the source is for it. We've had to be as creative as possible with it. At the same time, it's been trying not to overexpand. I have these grand, big ideas, right? And I have to know that while I don't want to limit myself, I know that I do have limits. I recognize that. And so it's really being able to work within those barriers that are not self-constructed, that are the actual barriers out there in the world. And so, you know, for me, it's been all about not doing my best not to take on debts that I knew I couldn't afford, or to be able to stick my neck out too far, but just far enough. So I've been really careful about my hiring practices. I don't have a lot of employees. For all of the business that we do currently with our state, county, city contracts and and distributions across the state, I have 6 employees. It's a little stressful because 3 of them are in this room right now. My wife, Jennifer, and myself. I've got 1 driver and 2 warehouse workers that are holding down the fort right now, and they're doing a tremendous job of it, I'm sure. But it's all about, well, one of my friends told me once, when you start a business, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you can save. And like, it's just stuck with me, right? I don't know if I'm on topic anymore now, or...
I think you are. You did great. I would also echo, just like, quiet that voice that says you can't do it. There's nobody, you know, it's rare that I think that people are really, truly innovators, you know, and there's a lot of people doing businesses like we want to be doing. So it's not, there's nothing special, it's just that they're doing it and willing to take the risk. For our situation is, since we're a board and we're sort of a nonprofit situation, we had to take a lot of time to kind of get our own house in order before we were willing to go out and ask people for money, or for, you know, to really be firm that we can actually execute what we're asking. And so we've built a lot of goodwill and trust in the community, and have been able to win grants because we can kind of show that we're not, we have longevity, you know, with our organization and the vision. And then, definitely not overextending. So a lot of times on nonprofit boards, you can tend to get into a reactive situation, and we don't want to do that. We want to be really intentional with what we're doing, and just because something comes along this year and sounds good, we're not going to jump all over it and try to apply for it if it doesn't make sense. And then I think our biggest success as like our boards together, Mukai and Vashon Island Growers Association, is that we're all really supportive of each other, and we really take care of each other. So there's a lot of, it makes our boards stronger because there's never any nitpicking or never any undercutting or undermining. So that's a big thing for, that I'm really proud of, and I think our organization's really proud of, and is actually like fundamental for this type of work to be done.
I think for me, it's a little just different because I'm not a nonprofit. I was a private business, and I was coming from the chef world, restaurant world, being a private yacht chef for a long time, and just seeing the opportunities out there in the grocery stores and to make that change. And so some of the barriers I did face, obviously funding is one of them, but I don't think that's the hardest one out there. It truthfully for me was finding a kitchen space that worked, that didn't cost, you know, 6 figures to build out. I was maybe a little over ambitious in the beginning, and I said yes to something I shouldn't have said yes to, and I signed a lease knowing that what they were offering was almost too good to be true. And I would say that was one of those things: if it's too good to be true, ask again, sleep on it, talk it out with somebody you truly trust, who maybe is in the industry at least. Maybe don't talk to people who aren't in the industry, talk to somebody who is in it, and ask them, is this too good to be true? Because if it is, it probably is. And that instant did cost me a year, and it cost me, you know, $6,000 of my own money, and wasted time, which was the most valuable part. As an entrepreneur, my time is valuable. And so that's one of the things that I prioritize now. And going forth, when I looked for my next space, I didn't give up. I just kept going. I got turned down so many times. the space that we're in right now, I actually got told no 2 different times, and it had gone vacant, and nobody wanted to put any work into it. And then finally, they got a new property management company. I mean, the day that sign went up, I called that person, and within a week, I was there, signed a lease, and got it going. So it really does matter about the people that you're around. Don't give up on certain places. There are gatekeepers that are going to keep you out of where you want to be, and sometimes you just have to go around those gatekeepers. Sometimes you just have to find another way in, find a window, dig your own hole, get in there. Now that we're in there, everybody wants this space. Now that I built it out, the space that nobody wanted, sat vacant for 2 years, and now people want it. I get inquiries monthly of like, oh, can you rent out that space? Oh, what are you doing with that space? And it's funny that, something that nobody else wants, then you turn it around and now everybody wants it. And so that's why I would say those barriers, yes, they're there, but just overcome them. And I mean, I think the other only barrier was really just the permitting process, not really the permitting process, but the business side of business, like the QuickBooks, the accounting, things of that nature. I have been fortunate enough to have a good friend who is an accountant who's kept me on board, but I would say that if I didn't have that, I'd be really concerned. And I would just say that if those barriers are there, know your weaknesses, because those barriers are generally just your weaknesses, and then try to overcome those weaknesses, because those are yours. That's not anything else put out there, and you can't overcome those. And so what I did is obviously find a really good accountant, have a really good lawyer, and I got rid of my commercial real estate agent and did it on my own, and negotiated my own terms and negotiated my own lease. And I did that because I reached out to other businesses and asked them, what did you do with your lease? What do you love about your lease? What do you hate about your lease? What would you change? And they gave me great feedback and told me, what to do. And I negotiated for myself, which I would say is probably, if you're going to be a private business owner, learn and be really good at negotiating for yourself and selling yourself, because that is so valuable. And that's probably the only reason I'm here right now, is because I do have good negotiating skills and I know myself. And so I don't overextend. I learned to say no to certain things. You have to. I know in the beginning you want to say yes to everything. Learn to say no and align yourself and stay the path. Like, I think that's probably the best way to keep going. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, all your talk about lease gives me lease PTSD. And actually made me think of something, because leasing farm property was a huge challenge, continues to be a challenge for me. Being on a farm is kind of like having a very colicky baby that is crying all the time. And so one thing that I don't want to forget to say is, if you are a nonprofit, the Washington State Bar has a pro bono lottery. And when we had $5,000 to our name, signed up for that, entered our name into that, and we won the jackpot with real estate attorneys. And that has been instrumental in protecting us, because as much as we want to think that people are good people, and even with a nonprofit feeding 6,000 people a month, we thought that certainly that we wouldn't be at risk. And I have had to call upon those attorneys every 6 months. So that reminded me of a challenge, but sorry about I think, when I talk about the challenge of, running our business, we don't function like a typical nonprofit in the food business. So probably my biggest challenge is my own industry, honestly, and perceptions of that, and designing within an industry that is risk adverse, that does not understand economy of scale, and me trying to do all those things and be innovative within this structure. There's also, in food banking, there tends to be a lot of weight in what the common good is, and it's a very volunteer-centric type of management. I am from Nordstrom. That is my professional and corporate background. And all I can think about are customers all the time. When I lay my head down on the pillow, I'm thinking about customer experience. I'm super obsessed. My employees know that about me. I just want to know that we're delivering a quality product with the public dollar. That is extremely important to me. My biggest challenge in that is explaining that in industry. And so I find myself not always being the most popular or most comfortable in those circles. we have hit a tipping point, but it took 5 years to get there. A lot of punches were thrown our way and continue to be, because when people don't understand innovation or new ways of thinking, they tend to develop their own narrative about it. And so me having to explain that while managing scale, because for me, as a customer-centric organization, I only want to help more people and scale to meet that. We have a legislative consultant that had to sit me down one time because I was so frustrated with my environment in nonprofit. And what he had told me, he had to kind of break it down for me, and I finally understood. And he said, Stacey, like a lot of times in nonprofit, because of the social structure, because of the financial structure, you know, you make a certain amount of money and you help how many people you can afford with this amount of money. And what you're doing with this model is saying how many people need to be helped and then scaling the business to meet that. Now, that is a 24-hour operation currently, because there is not funding strategies that allow me really to make more than, you know, $20,000 at a time outside of these larger grants. And so that is scaling at the same time that we're scaling, you know, our organization, because I understand that, you know, how much it costs to serve, you know, per transaction, per connection with our community member, and that the bigger I get, the less expensive that will be. The other thing that you know, we're starting to notice is behavior. So I'm, you know, extremely interested in behavior, and some of the things that I now have data to show completely conflict with the rest of my industry. That is a huge challenge. It makes me not popular, but I'm going to tell you a really awesome story that makes me unpopular. While the rest of my industry is saying that there is not food, there's not enough food to feed people, and that there's more and more people that are hungry, I have a 400 square mile area that I serve that has remained static for an entire year. Static meaning that I have not grown, but I intake about 300 new customers that are interested in visiting our locker and our shopping and our e-commerce site. Now what that means is that our consumer base is able to get the groceries they need, access them, recover quickly, and then move back on with their life. That's what's happening. So not only are people shopping 50% less, meaning visits to the market, but my average consumer is also selecting 50% less food. So at scale, I have built in now, this model has built in the ability for us to impact 50% more people at the same cost. And my hope is that we continue to do that. Now, you are catching Cascadia Produce and I in a moment right now where we decided to take another risk, strategically though, and are assessing all of the components of this. But I'm in an industry that doesn't know how to scale, and 6 times I've had people that I've offered $1 million to help me scale, and they haven't been able to do it. I've offered to co-write grants, to share what grants I've had to help scale, and I have had months and months of meetings, up to 6 months of meetings. I asked Jeremy once if he would consider being my roommate, and he said, when can you move in? When can you move in? And so business understands economy of scale and understands how we can dovetail together to have the greatest impact. I'm really excited about what that looks like, the legality and the certification and all of that. We are going through that. We have attorneys, accountants, and auditors and all of that, and we are making a calculated, you know, risk that this is what our economy needs right now. The federal government says the pandemic is done. We are all still reeling from this financially and otherwise. And so there needs to be a model put into the market of feeding human beings that's scalable, and there isn't right now. Everybody's at the legislative session today talking about the fact that there isn't, which is deeply upsetting on so many fronts that I will pass the mic.
Thank you all. So with the, let's see, we're doing good on time, great. The last question that I have before we open up to audience question is briefly, now that you have essentially a platform, I think this is a great jumping point for folks to come up to you later in the conference to chat about more things. So maybe quickly, one thing that you and your organization might be offering, but also one thing that an ask for the audience. So something you offer and also something, a request of sort. All right, go ahead.
I am a huge believer in open source. So one of the things Cascadia and I will be telling you about is we, as soon as we move in, which takes a moment, but probably not for us. We'll get moved in pretty quick. We will be opening up on Thursday evenings for just kind of what are we calling it, Jill? Jill has great names. A salon, Jill calls it. But basically, anybody can come and visit us at the Let Us Help Center. We're going to call it Remain Calm Hour. That's all Jill. Jill, she pays all the benefits and has a really great puns, so she's a really useful person. Open source, I love to show people, I hand people the grants that I've written. I love to think tank through anything that you might have a question about. And then in terms of what I'm looking for, our organization is looking for, is open-minded, innovative folks that might see a connection point of how the lockers, being a site partner, we partner with public and private sector. We actually have a locker at a grocery store in Buckley, but we have them at fire stations and libraries, places where our community is. That if you have an idea for that and there is a funding strategy that we could work on together, we are looking for franchisees that would be interested in working with us in that capacity.
I might be interested. I think for me, as we continue to scale up in this kitchen, I just have brought on another partner inside and started co-packing for the first time. But I know that I have room for probably another 1 or 2 companies to kind of come in, and it has to all align, and so we also have to sit down and talk about whether it works, what you're doing, things of that nature, and obviously there's contracts and things like that, so that is open for people. If you know someone who's small, you can't be too big quite yet, to be honest with you, because we're growing as my pickle business, and so I know that we only have a certain amount of capacity, but if you're just getting started and you're working in farmers markets and you want to see how you can get past the farmers market and get into grocery stores, I'm a great resource. I did skip the farmer market part of it because I just wanted to go right to grocery stores and kind of just get going there. But I know that that's a great way to start, and then, my kitchen would be the next avenue if you really did want to go wholesale and kind of start scaling up your business. I would say the one want that I need is that I am actually looking for a CFO. I know that that's really important for my business. I know that's the only way we're going to get nationwide and grow and really meet my full capacity of what I really want to do as a businesswoman. And so if anybody knows a CFO out there, holler.
For us, we're going to start building out the barreling plant soon, and so I think our offer would be there is commercial kitchen space and there's one more retail space. Currently we have Fuku Ferments, and then Fernhorn Bakery, which is a local bakery that he sources grains as locally as he can, and we're actually, we got a grant from KCD to get a mill, so we're going to be growing our own grain on Vashon, milling it, selling it there, and using it for bread there. And then we're also talking with somebody from a restaurant called Zamarana on Vashon, and he may make that space a tortilleria. But there is a large commercial kitchen space that we're ordering all the stuff from with the WSDA grant, like starting next week. And it'll be open for rent. So you could use it for value added if you're a grower and you're having a hard time finding commercial kitchen space. The problem with everybody here is you got to take a ferry, but we have like 30 or 40 farms out there, so hopefully they'll be able to scale up to meet the extra market that we're trying to open. So you could possibly source food out there and produce it there and sell it there. And our ask would be that you could learn more about the Mukai barreling plant. It's really a pretty special place. The Mukai farm is really special. The barreling plant was the first thing they built in 1926. And then once their kid turned 16, they were able to purchase the land because they were Japanese immigrants, but he was born in the United States, so he was allowed to purchase the land. And they saw that all the Japanese farmers were being taken advantage of. And so he truly was an innovator. He built the barreling plant and served all the Japanese farmers and innovated a way to pack berries so they could be shipped all across the country. It's also the first Japanese garden in the United States of America is there. The house has been completely remodeled and refurbished, and you can go and visit there, and it's as it was as they lived there until they were forced to leave because of internment. So I would just ask that you take time to learn about that project and maybe go visit it. It's really, really special.
I offer spitballs. Come and talk to me, and I will just spitball ideas all over the place. And some of them will sound totally off the wall, and maybe they'll stick, and some of them will fall right off. But I like to get involved in throwing out ideas, and I'm kind of all over the place. A lot of our programs were building boxes, but so much of my thought process is outside of the box, right? We had an industrial symbiosis grant from Department of Commerce that was all about, we utilized that towards food waste. We opened up our facility to receive truckloads in of rejected produce from retailers. Some of these rejections were absolutely ridiculous. It would be nameless retailer had a specification that tomatoes on the vine had to have 4 or 5 on a vine. Didn't matter about quality. It was number of tomatoes on the vine. If the sample was 3 tomatoes, they would reject the load. That's been going on since the very beginning of retail, so that's just the way it is. But we brought that in. Through that program in 1 year, we brought in 3 million pounds of food. We paid those growers for that food, and then we were able to offer it up on a secondary market to hunger relief organizations and some businesses as well to be able to feed people. The other grantees on that program, the other 3 were about like lumber and biochar and something else, right? So I like to push the boundaries and see what things are out there, right? Additionally, or my ask, I guess, would be please come talk to me because I love talking. And I love hearing the stories about what everybody else is doing because then I can come back with, what have you tried this, right? And it can be things like Shauna Perez, a Sasquatch Family Farm somewhere out there, I think, who she's got a pig farm, and we had produce that wasn't fit for human consumption, and so we start providing her with this food waste, right? And I have a 1-yard compost bin at my facility. I'm ridiculous about composting, recycling. I have my coffee cup from today stored on a counter somewhere. I'm going to use it for the next 2 weeks. And so getting into the stories and being able to, hear what people are doing and try to help solve problems, that's really what I want to do. So please just come find me and talk to me is my ask.
All right, give everybody a round of applause. Thank you, everybody. So we have, we're doing great on time, 10 minutes for a Q&A. Kate, are you running around with the mic? Would you mind? Anybody has any questions for our panelists today? Feel free to raise your hand and Kate will come by. Did we cover everything? There we go.
Hello. Hi, I have a question, Mahogany, for you. You mentioned crazy high cost of build out of commercial kitchens, and I'm curious what advice you would have for people in the room, and maybe even for for Viga there on the panel too, of like things to really be looking out for and putting your money towards, and especially when thinking about bringing on partners that you maybe are going to co-pack for. Like, what are the pieces that those people are looking for in a kitchen that will bring them to you and make them good partners with you? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Like I said, the first space I looked at was an empty warehouse, and that was a bad idea because I was going to have to build everything, the grease trap, the air ducts, all of that jazz. And so I would advise looking at a space that has already been permitted before. It's fine if it looks dirty and it's this old restaurant and hasn't been touched in 10 years, that's fine. The fact that there is a mop sink and that there's a grease inceptor and that there is ventilation already there that you just have to improve is the key. When you have to start from the ground up, those permits and dealing with inspectors from the city and engineering, that's when the cost gets out of control, and that's when I heard so many food businesses build or take on too much debt at the beginning. There's a certain amount of debt you're going to have to take on no matter what, but it needs to be smart debt, and it needs to be, the space that you choose needs to be that you can build it out. And so when I saw the kitchen I had, it had the water sinks, it had the prep sinks, it actually had ventilation. It didn't have a grease inceptor, and so I know that I can't take any businesses that do dairy, but it's something that going forth I can add on, but I knew that that's something that I can add on in year 3 if it's necessary. But that I know that also sets some limitations on the foods businesses that I can take. But given what I was doing and knowing that I only needed that, that's why I said yes to this space instead of finding the absolute perfect space, because there is no perfect space out there. And so you just have to kind of be open-minded and kind of see the future and grow within your capacity and your scale. So that's what I would say. Look for grease traps, sewage, and drainage. Those are the most important ones.
Anybody else want to add to that? Oh, any other questions? Over here.
Hi, my name is Jules. I was just wondering if anybody is interested in doing like a community kitchen in Seattle, if you could talk to me, because I'm in Seattle. Maybe you all might want to also network in some idea like this. So.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is for Cascadia. Do you find that there's more food waste to distribute, or is there too many people that need the rescued food? What's the balance that you've seen?
This country produces more than enough food to feed the entirety of our population. It is the distribution and it is the larger companies that are not allowing for that to happen because there's economic gain in it. I work happily, luckily, with a lot of great local producers. Mark back here, we've got an order coming in from him this week that's going to be going off to Bremerton to go be distributed out there. Shauna's Pork is going there. Julie from Central Bean is going to be bringing stuff over. So we have that local connection, but outside of the local area, we work with large farms in California and distributors from Texas, Mexico, that bring product in. That there's so much coming in from one particular farm that we work with in California that while I'm bringing semi-loads in, I'm actually saying no to food because it's too much. So it is just simply a matter of us being defiant to the system that's in place and recognizing that there's more than enough food. Everyone should have enough food in this country.
Okay, Jeremy, kind of a follow-up question to that. So I was recently contacted by somebody who's trying to work on a project where they're working specifically with food waste that can't be fed to humans. So food that is not fit for human consumption. And what I was wondering about is, so I figure if you have companies reaching out to you saying, we have this food, whether it's for human consumption, maybe at a food bank level or what have you, but then there's food that can't be used for human consumption, how do you find those partners to accept that kind of food waste, and is there a big enough demand to take in that kind of food waste?
Pigs love to eat. And their Shaunas are getting a little bit more discriminatory because we've been giving them a lot of really good overripe bananas and overripe melons and whatnot. But for all of that, it's really identifying livestock producers that are out there, and we have hundreds of them throughout Washington State. I'm mostly vegetarian, but I recognize that there's an industry out there that people like to eat animals, right? And so, you know, if I can do my part in order to reduce the climate effect of what's coming in from food waste, to be able to get it out, to take Department of Ecology's tagline and use food well, then that's what I'm going to do. And it takes a little bit of extra effort, and that's, I think, like the hardest part for people is like there's no economic benefit for me to give free pork or free vegetables to Shauna to go feed her pigs. Now, every Friday, she brings her 140-pound Newfoundland that I get to play with, and that is immeasurable when I get to play with Theo. But it's really me making that decision where, no, I'm going to make sure that this happens, right? And then I work with other organizations that also have pig farmers as well, and so and their hunger relief distribution partners, where they'll say, you know what, we'll take stuff that we know has stuff that's bad in it, because we'll sort through it, we'll make sure the good stuff goes out, and it's finding those collaborative partners throughout all of it.
Can I add a little bit too? There's also like on Vashon, we have food waste, and we've created a preservation project for it. So we got a couple of freeze dryers from a KCD grant, and so we will go glean food and then give it away through the community for free. So you can do that with like a community larder. So you don't have to do it in a commercial kitchen, but you can create a community larder. You just need the people to do the work, but it's a good model, I think, because it's pretty low input time. It's just cutting stuff up and throwing it in a freeze dryer and then packaging it. So it's like a half hour on either end, and then it runs a day. And we just give it out to our community partners. And so like with our project now with the commercial kitchen, we're actually going to be able to distribute it through the food bank and through Backpack Pantry through the schools. So there are like many markets, I think, for that type of food. And then everything else that I actually have pigs too, so they do love a melon. We do connect all of our local growers to whoever wants to come get a bucket or whatever. But a lot of times the food bank can't handle the amount of stuff they're getting at one time, and they'll call us and we'll come and preserve it, and then it carries through the shoulder season.
Thank you.
Real quick, additionally, for anything that's not for animal feed, not for people, biodigesters, University District Food Bank has one, and it's like super awesome because you can create it. You have one. You talk about it.
Yeah, Vashon Island has one, and a lot of the soy byproduct goes through because we have a tofu plant there. But yeah, it's pretty great. So we don't have enough to sort of give to them because we kind of use it all, but that is a great, if you could leverage something like that in your community, they are wonderful. And a lot of the farms use I do too, I can't think of the word, the liquid that comes out at the end, the plant food that comes out at the end. You can dry it, or it comes out as just liquid, and you can spray it directly on your plants or in the soil, and the plants absorb it. And generally, I think like you get about 30% more fruiting, which is pretty great.
Okay, last question.
All right, I have a quick question, just to follow up to this whole conversation. Food conservation has a significant labor cost, and I'm just wondering how you mitigate that cost.
Is that to somebody in particular?
To the two on the end. Sorry, I'm bad with names.
That's our main problem, is labor. For farmers on the island generally, it's labor and housing. It's really difficult to house a worker and pay them for a full day work. A lot of times farmers will share, and that's probably what we would do too if we, once we get to this commercial kitchen situation and we're gleaning, we probably will use a person that many farms will use to do value added, because often, like, I'm a farmer, I don't have time to also do the value added part of the business often. That's a pretty big chunk. So we may just communally share a person, and that, I don't know how you mitigate, like, it's just expensive, and you don't want to pay somebody what they're not worth, and it's impossible to live on Vashon and probably Seattle if you're a 20-hour-a-week employee, even if you're making $30 an hour. Like, it's just a hard juggle. So we're actually going to be building a business plan and probably going through getting a loan to kind of cover the first couple years of the operations, because Viga will be like doing the operations at Mukai, so that'll all be on us. And it's just, again, it's like step by step trying to figure it out, but I don't think there's a way to like make it, you have to pay it, like you have to do it. And if you can't, I don't think you have business running a business if you can't pay an employee correctly. So it's really, I don't have a good answer for that because it's really hard, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of suck it up is really what it comes down to. Like, for me, it's my own personal choice on it, right? Like, I'm really, really, really fixated on not wasting food, and that carries over into my company, and so I decide to, you know, expend the money to pay labor to make sure that it's not wasted.
All right, thank you, everybody. Another round of applause. And I believe the next one is, a lot of you are waiting for this too. It's lunchtime, so I think we're good to go. Thank you so much, everybody.